Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Bianca, and I walk you through a variety of art styles. Today, I wanted to show you how I approach figure study and some tips and tricks to help you get started. I hope it brings you some nuggets of wisdom you can use. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and click the little bell button to be notified of any upcoming videos I make. Click it. Click it. I post weekly tutorials, and I know you'll get a lot of value out of it. Today I'm going to be referencing this picture, which is a gorgeous picture I found on Google. I don't know who the model or the photographer is. If you do though, it's great to credit them. For this piece, I'm using a Strathmore mixed media sketchbook, a mechanical pencil, a ballpoint pen, and a kneaded eraser. Now let's begin. A good tip when you are starting a figure study and just drawing in general, you want to kind of lock your wrist and your elbow and draw from your shoulder. I started first by blocking out the head and the shoulders. Out from the head, I draw a line down to give me the shape. And now I'm going through very lightly with my pencil and blocking out where the ribs will go and where the pelvis is. Now I'm going in and measuring, making sure that the proportions are correct. A whole human figure is around 7 heads. For superhumans, it would be like 8 heads, but for normal people, we're not perfect. So again, throughout this whole process, it's very, very light strokes. And when you come down to the hands, just kind of block it out with a triangle, and then you can sort of block out where the fingers will go. Okay, so at this point, it's kind of looking like a weird skeleton dude. It's good. Figure drawing is all about patience. The longer you work on it, the better it will look, because the more details you'll have. And something I've realized for beginners is you want to exaggerate the figure. So if there is a slanted line, like for the back, I tried to exaggerate it as much as possible. At the beginning, you think that you're exaggerating things, but in reality, it doesn't look like it. I suggest stepping back and really taking a look at your drawing and comparing it to your reference often. With this process, you really want to start thinking about shapes instead of lines. When I draw the forearms, I'm thinking about an elongated triangle. And when I draw the feet, it's almost like a triangle as well, coming down from the ankle. I think I'm going to make a figure drawing basics tutorial as well, with all of the fundamentals and all of the tips that I can tell you to make it easier for you to start. So now you see that I have gone in and made many of my lines a lot darker. Usually when you do a figure drawing, you don't want to darken every line. You want to darken the part that you want the viewer to focus on the most. For the purposes of this video, I really wanted to focus on the shapes that you are seeing. Now I'm going in and erasing some of the more structural lines I made at the beginning to block it out. For practice, I think it's best to leave those lines so that you can see your process. And again, I'm going to be going in and darkening some of the lines, like where I would like you to be able to focus on. Let's go in and make sure that you can really see this hand. And again, I'm thinking in terms of shapes. So I'm looking at this hand as an oblongated triangle with another triangle coming out of it for the thumb and fingers. The feet look a little bit small, so I'm going to go ahead and change that. Using a pencil to start is really great because if you have any kind of structural errors, you can fix it easily. Now, I couldn't decide if I wanted to draw a face or not because I didn't want to draw the attention away from the midsection, but then I decided to do it anyway. Now I'm going to go in and start shading a little bit. Values are what are going to make your painting or your drawing pop out of the page. The darker you go, the more depth something has. And for this part, it's really important to study other objects and how the light bounces off of them. If you look at an arm, it's kind of like a cylinder. If you look at a leg, it can also be a cylinder. And if you really notice the way that light bounces off of it, the darkest part is in the middle. This reference would be really good to analyze in terms of values. Like, where do you see the darkest darks? Where do you see the light? Where do you see the whitest whites? That's where the light is hitting it directly. You will really be able to see this principle in the leg because I'm going to shade it all the way and leave that little bit of light at the bottom. Now here I left a little bit of light from the calf muscle, but in retrospect, it's a lot darker than I made it. Now, if you notice on the calf, it's almost like it's split into two. There's a very, very dark section, and then there is a little bit of light coming through in between. When you get a little bit more advanced with it, you can go into all of the inner workings of anatomy. But for now, simple shapes will do. You don't need to know all of the anatomy in order to draw a figure, but it definitely helps when something gets more complicated. I'm still not there with anatomy, but that's a really good idea of something I can work on. Now let's make sure all of these fingers are dark because the light is hitting the front of the hand and shading the back where the fingers are. And now I'm gonna go in and start shading the shirt. The shoulder and back are going to be much darker, and you can see that little bit of light coming in at the bottom of the sleeve. Now that I've been looking at the reference for longer, I could have even darkened like a bow shape right in the middle from the beginning, which could have saved me a lot of time with the shading. I started focusing on the details a little bit quick, but I am liking how it's turning out so far. Oh look, now you can see that shape that I was talking about. It just took me a longer while to get there. Shading is a very long process, but probably one of the most important parts of figure drawing. I'm really focusing on the bottom of this fabric and how the values are interacting with the rest of the piece. It looks like this part is super dark, and that part is being hit by light. Okay, so now it looks like you're seeing some of the creases in the fabric. Looking cool. Now let me speed it up a little bit more so that we can get to the pen. I'm going to finish by really shading the head, the hair, the neck. And what's really cool about using pencil and a kneaded eraser is if you forget to put a highlight somewhere, you can go in with your kneaded eraser and erase those parts that you need highlighted. Once you're satisfied with your sketch, grab a ballpoint pen and we're going to darken all of the darks. Remember, you want to darken the parts that you want the viewer to focus on the most. And voila! I think it turned out pretty nicely. My only critique would be to make my darks darker and to angle the face a little bit more up. But altogether, I'm pretty happy with it. Now it's your turn. I'd love to see your figure drawings. I have a Facebook group that you could post them in. I'll put it in the description below. And thanks for watching Art with Bianca!